Neil Pendock, probably the most prolific wine writer in South Africa, but not a wine writer by trade or education. How did the wine bug bite you?
Oh, well, that's a very interesting question, and I've been asked it hundreds of times, and I really haven't come up with a straight answer. I'm a mathematician by training, and I was teaching mathematics at Wits, which gave me a lot of time to do other things and think about other things. And I got into the circuit of book reviewers for the Sunday Times. I reviewed a book on cosmology written by somebody at UCT, and I think I trashed it. And of course the Sunday Times likes that approach. So I got on a little circuit of book reviewers, and one of the books they sent me was Oz Clarke's Wine Atlas. So I trashed that as well. Oh, you know all about wine, they said, don't you want a wine column? So I said, no.
Are you saying journalism is a cynical profession?
Well, journalism, I think for a newspaper like the Sunday Times, I think that a cynical approach can get you quite far. Okay, I admit it's quite shallow, and I'm not always cynical, etc., etc. But I think people do like to read, well, let's be honest, a restaurant review. Would you rather read a gush about a restaurant, or would you rather read, this was the worst restaurant meal I've ever had, etc., etc.? And I think most people would like to read the bad news. I think that's just how we are. And I think I just had that frame of mind.
Yet a lot of your writing, and I don't think you always get credit for it, begins with your passion and love for wine. How did that start? You come from a wine drinking background, family. When did you discover wine?
No, absolutely not. I think the thing about wine is it's sort of like a cultural barometer. You know, it tells you so much about the society and about the people who make the wine and the histories and the tradition. You know, it's the exact opposite of something like Coca-Cola, you know, which really has got no stories about how Coca-Cola is made. There's a secret recipe in a vault in Atlanta. But with wine, of course, each wine is uniquely different, and it tells you all about the winemaker and the passion of the people who planted the grapes and who made the wine and the region that it came from, and the whole concept of terroir, that wine should be able to taste of a place. This is a glass, for example, of Bloemendaal Sauvignon Blanc 2009.
It's very nice.
It's very nice indeed, and of course that's a wonderful story because, I mean, the story starts in the 70s with Tokyo Sexwale sitting on Robben Island, political prisoner, and he was probably looking out at the vineyards on which these grapes grew, and he was probably thinking, you know, I wonder what the person who's growing those grapes, what he's doing, what kind of person he is. And then Jackie Coetzee, who was the guy who was making the wine, sitting on Bloemendaal, probably looking at Robben Island, probably thinking, I wonder if I could get in there and get some perlemoen or get some crayfish. But of course in those days Robben Island was not a tourist attraction, it was a prison. And today, 30 years later, it's like that Hollywood movie, Trading Places, where you've actually had a reversal and you've now got Tokyo, who's now the Minister of Human Settlement or something, which is a very weird job, I think. And he paid 105 million rand for Bloemendaal 2 years ago, of course at the top of the market, not a great investment. And there's Jackie, you know, sitting there with 105 million rand. And probably I wonder what they're both thinking about Bloemendaal and Sauvignon Blanc. But you can't taste that, of course. You can't taste that story in the wine. But I still think it's a nice thing to link to Bloemendaal Sauvignon Blanc. And I went there on the Good Value Guru trip 2 months ago. We went to the tasting room. And there's a big Jagermeister cooler, and there's a sort of it looks like a cold meat counter which is full of French champagne. And I thought, you can see there's been a change of ownership here, because you know, the ANC Youth League love champagne, so maybe they're going to have a little jolly out there. And on top of the shelf there were some bottles of this Sauvignon Blanc, and I said, could I taste them? And they said, oh no, definitely not, you know, you must buy them. So I thought, well, stuff that. But anyway, I got a taste. And I thought it was really remarkable. And then another barometer of the wine industry is Get Wine, which is Johan Wegner's online internet wine selling operation. And you can really see how farms are doing by how many bottles they have in this operation, unlabeled wines, etc. And recently, this wine has become available on Get Wine for under 60 rand a bottle, which I think is a great deal. And I'm enjoying it. Cheers.
Okay, so tell me, Neil, when you taste a wine and it hits you the spot,
yes,
describe that to me. What What turns you on about a wine?
Well, there are various things. I think the biggest thrill for me about a wine is the bouquet, is the smell, is the nose. I think that's where you're getting about 80% of your information. But what I have noticed recently is what I really like about a wine is the mouthfeel, is the texture of the wine. It's not so much the taste, whether it tastes of green peppers or of asparagus or of brambles or whatever. I think that's pretty obvious, pretty boring. But what I do like is the way it sort of coats your mouth sometimes, or the way it can be sometimes so precise. So it's the whole texture, it's a sort of a second or a third order effect. I think is quite interesting. And in fact, I was thinking about what makes a great wine. And I spoke to my friend Tinus van Niekerk, who's the wine consultant for Spa, and I said, Tinus, what is it that makes one wine a great wine and another wine just a good wine? And he said, well, you have to divide your information into the tangible and the intangible. And the tangible, of course, is the kind of thing that you could read about in, for example, the Platter Wine Guide. The alcohol content, what the wine tastes like, etc., etc., etc. But it's the intangibles that make a great wine. And what is intangible about a wine is the perception of elegance, of finesse, of balance. All of these things that you can't really put your finger on. But when you've got them, you know you've got them. And when they're missing, you really do miss them. And that's what makes a great wine. Cheers.